Hi, I'm Dr. Broussard with the Wagon Train Veterinary Clinic, and today's topic is going to be a fun one. We're going to do Dog Pregnancy 101. So any questions that you might have had about pregnancy, how long it lasts, what do I need to do, what am I looking for afterwards, I'm going to try to cover all the questions that hopefully you would have here in the next few segments. Lacey has put together a list of questions that we do commonly get faced with here. We're going to run through those together, and hopefully that'll give you a better understanding about dog pregnancy. Go ahead.
How can I ensure the well-being of my pregnant dog?
First off, almost like with any dog, just making sure that their health is good in general, okay? If you know that you have plans of breeding your dog, make sure she's examined beforehand, make sure she's in good physical health, enough so to withstand the rigors that come with a pregnancy. So that would be step one. Step two would be maybe get her tested for any infectious diseases beforehand, things like brucellosis, that's the main one that comes to mind for me, but just make sure that she is a good candidate for a pregnancy and doesn't have anything infectious that could be passed on either to the male or to her puppies. And then the third and final thing, and again, this goes along with just good medical care in general, but a good parasite screening on her. Certain intestinal worms can be transferred either placentally or certainly after birth, that they can be transferred to the puppy. So you want to make sure she's clean beforehand, and that usually makes for a smoother birthing process and the first few weeks of a puppy's life.
How long will my dog be pregnant for?
So the gestation period for dog is right about 63 days. Some people break it down into trimesters. If you do that, it's 21 days per trimester, but it's 63 days. So we're looking almost spot on 2 months for pregnancy.
How soon should I bring my pet in to see a veterinarian if I suspect my dog is pregnant?
Good question. The beginning stages can be a little hit or miss because obviously if you think she's pregnant, she just came out of heat. Well, sometimes when dogs are coming out of heat, they can go through a false pregnancy at times. That absolutely mimics a true pregnancy. And sometimes even just the hormonal changes that they're getting over can fool you. And so the reason I'm prefacing by saying that is because I normally would tell you probably 3 weeks, maybe even closer to 4 if you think your dog's pregnant. And part of my reason for answering that is because before then, there's not much definitive testing that I can do to confirm that she is pregnant. There is a really good test. It uses a hormone called relaxin. Relaxin is released normally in the first 21 to 27 or so days after they're bred. And so normally I tell people don't bring them in that period because I don't want there to be any confusion. But after about day 30, if that animal is pregnant, they should have that relaxin hormone present. And like I said, we have tests that can detect that hormone. And that's about the earliest that you can definitively confirm a pregnancy in a female.
What are some signs of pregnancy in dogs?
Again, very early stages are a little bit tricky, but as it progresses, probably into that second or maybe even early third trimester, you're definitely going to see some of the changes with their mammary glands. You'll have enlarged and maybe even engorged mammary glands, where they'll be producing milk. In the heat cycle, of course, their external genitalia, their vulva, if you will be swollen. That subsides a little bit during pregnancy, but it's probably going to still be a little bit abnormally big. And then when you do get a little bit further along, again, in that 30 to 40 day range, you'll start to see some abdominal, I'll say swelling. It's not truly swelling, but you'll see abdominal enlargement just from the sheer size of the uterus that's expanding within. If it's a very small litter, maybe she hides that pretty well. If it's a really large dog, maybe it's an overweight female, yeah, those are not going to show up until the very latter stages, but those are some of the things that you can expect physically to change in your pregnant female dog.
Will my veterinarian use diagnostic testing to determine if my dog is pregnant?
Yeah, so I kind of stole my thunder on this answer a little bit, but the relaxin pregnancy test is one. And again, that's a little bit earlier, so you can do that one probably around a day 30 or so mark, or later. It doesn't have to be at day 30, but no sooner than that. The big one that a lot of people like to do is the x-rays. You can get radiographs of a pregnant female's abdomen, and you can detect somewhat of a puppy count or the number that can be expected. Now, here's the thing. You can't do it just any time during pregnancy. The skeletons of those puppies don't ossify until about day 50 or so. So anytime before that, I'm not saying you won't get any glimpse of bones and maybe get a rough estimate of count, of puppy count, but I don't recommend doing it until day 50 or later, just for that reason. I don't want to do it early and then I'm still scratching my head thinking, well, this might be or that might be. If you wait a little bit later, that can help you out there. One other test that some people like to do, maybe not so much for the count, But for the vitality of the pregnancy is you can do ultrasound as well. Again, very difficult to count puppies. If you have a litter of 10 or 12 puppies, it's going to be pretty doggone hard to count. In fact, it's going to be virtually impossible, at least in my hands, to count 10 or 12 puppies on an ultrasound. But you can tell, again, the vitality of it, checking heart rates and things like that on the puppies to make sure that they're nice and viable.
What are some possible complications of dog pregnancy that I need to be aware of?
Complications, so you always have to worry about milk production. This is in the female herself, not so much the puppies right now, but in the pregnant female, especially when she starts producing a lot of milk. Well, that calcium comes from somewhere, and she's typically pulling it from her bones. I don't like starting calcium supplementation until after the puppies are born if it's needed. But I do like to at least increase their caloric and in that case calcium intake beforehand, usually in the form of feeding a good, well-balanced puppy food. So I'll typically recommend that for the females before. Other things too, I don't see it often, but you can get gestational diabetes, very similar to what happens in humans. And probably some of the more common complications happen either during or after the delivery themselves. And that is things such like you can have a retained placenta, and that's never good. I mean, that can lead to a uterine infection or pyometra very quickly. You can also sometimes have mastitis, talking about milk production, things like that. Those mammary glands and the teats, the ducts are very open, and sometimes they can have an ascending bacterial infection that'll get in there and cause mastitis. And so if you're looking for that, well, in fact, either one of those scenarios, mastitis, you're going to see what almost looks like bruising or discoloration to the mammary glands. The milk that comes out is no longer going to be white. It's going to be this yellowish tan, sometimes even darker than that type of substance. And then with the uterine infection, that one's, I'm not going to say tough to miss, but in some cases it is a very putrid, dark, just yucky vaginal discharge that will be coming out. And the reason I'm kind of hemming and hawing on the answer is because you're going to get some vaginal discharge for the next few days after birth anyway. But if we all know what pus looks like or smells like. If you see anything that looks like that, that's not normal. Normal vaginal discharge after birth would be a dark green, bordering on black, and that's from the placenta from the puppies themselves. But if you start getting that kind of brownish, tannish, yellowish type discharge, that usually is not a good sign, and I would be very concerned about pyometra in those cases. So anything else on today's?
What are some things I can do at home to prepare for my dog's labor?
So being prepared for labor, basically just get, some people call it a whelping box or whelping pen. Just get them their spot. Get them a spot where they can go away from the noise, away from the chaos, away from the confusion, get off by themselves. Usually you want an area that's well cushioned, well padded. It's going to be nice and warm, preferably dark, because a lot of dogs, they don't want to do this with an audience. They want to do it off by themselves. So just give them a spot that allows for that. Depending on the size of the dog, some people like a kiddie pool. You can do that and put blankets or towels or cushions in it. That can work well. Sometimes it's as simple as a cardboard box that's hidden in your closet or something like that. That can work just as well for maybe your smaller size dogs. But just have something like that prepared, plenty of warm towels. And then when it does get actually closer to the whelping time itself, I would definitely have plenty of towels, maybe some warm water, things like that. You might have to clean things. You might have to help clean the puppies, warm them up a little bit. So just be prepared with those kind of items if you can.
How can I help my dog recover after giving birth?
After giving birth, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a big proponent of letting Mother Nature do her thing. She knows how to do it, and for most cases, the dog knows how to do it as well. So I try not to intervene at all unless I am forced to intervene at all. So I don't aid the dog with delivering the puppies unless one is stuck and they need me. If they're in distress, then I will intervene. The aftercare, the mother, when those maternal instincts kick in, she should clean the puppies. She is usually going to eat. Yes, eat. It's nasty, but they do it. Eat the placenta themselves. So if they're doing that, they're going to usually take care of snipping that umbilical cord while they're chewing the placenta off. I know this all sounds nasty, but it's how it works, and they usually do a pretty good job of it. So I guess where I would need to intervene, or you potentially as a client, would be if she's having difficulties with the birthing process. And what does that mean? If she's pushing for 30 minutes or more and nothing's being produced, that's a problem. If she's taking longer than I was taught 3 to 4 hours in between puppies, that can be a problem. Now, some dogs, I know I've seen some dogs go overnight with it, but on average, if she's going that long in between puppies, it's at least worth a phone call to your veterinarian and find out if there's any issues. And then again, I kind of talked about some of the other things. If you see a puppy pass, but there's no placenta that follows, be very mindful of that and make sure that eventually that placenta does pass. Again, is that intervening? Not so much. It's just watching very closely and being mindful of what she's doing and what hasn't been done. So that's kind of the things that I would prepare for or do as a pet owner at home. Okay? I know this was a long video, guys. There's a lot to cover on this. I hope I answered some of your questions. If I did not, if you have more questions, reach out to us. You can reach us on Facebook. You can call us, or you can just come on by and I'll be happy to talk to you there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.